this most misunderstood research paper titled Working with AI, Measuring the Occupational Implications of Generative AI. Hey everyone, and welcome to Slator Pod. Today with a special episode on a piece of research, a research paper by Microsoft. And who better to talk about research papers than our very own head of research, Anna Wyndham. Hi, Anna.
Hi, Florian. Hi, everyone.
All right, so today we want to talk about this most misunderstood research paper titled Working with AI, Measuring the Occupational Implications of Generative AI. And it was published by a group of researchers from Microsoft. It got a ton of attention. It got even more wrong hot takes. It got X posts with 5,000 reposts and things like that. Tons of traction on LinkedIn as well. And we covered it both on the website, but also in our Friday newsletter. And then we got some great feedback from readers. One was, let me quote here, Anna. One was just an email back. It was like, some engineer at Microsoft speaks and you guys dutifully amplify it, ? Well, keep scanning the research papers for more self-serving prognostications. All right. Thank you. You can always unsubscribe. It's a free newsletter. So, if you don't like it, feel free to unsubscribe. Well, point being, there was a lot of emotion. There was a lot of kind of also wrong views on this particular research paper, but it's still very, very interesting. So let's unpack it. Anna, I'll hand over to you, unpack what's this paper about, and then let's try to go through it.
Yeah, as you said, it's got a really strong reaction. So the purpose of the paper was to measure the occupational implications of generative AI. That was the title. And just to start off, it's really interesting that Microsoft has access to all of this data about how users are actually using AI. So it's interesting, firstly, that they've chosen to study this and release it. So they're trying to understand the impact of AI on the economy and occupations generally. And they present this paper as just a small contribution to this conversation. So there's nothing kind of definitive about its conclusions. They've just taken some data and done a few things with it to see what they can find.
The data is data that nobody else would have access to, right?
Exactly.
And so this is the interesting thing. There's lots of stuff that we can do, but we can't look at what type of conversations people have with AI because, well, we're not running the AI.
Exactly. So they've looked at basically two sources of data. On the one hand, they're looking at how people are actually using Microsoft Copilot in the wild. And when they say in the wild, they mean for work purposes or for leisure purposes. They're not making any distinction. And they studied 200,000 conversations between people and the AI. And what they're trying to do is to understand, what are people using AI for? How successful is the AI in helping them do the tasks? And what tasks the AI itself actually performs. So they make a distinction between the goals that the users have and the tasks that the AI performs. And the way that they measure how successfully the tasks are executed is by looking at two things. They look at the user feedback. So they've got a thumbs up, thumbs down option for users to indicate their satisfaction with how well the AI has performed. And their researchers also have gone through the data from the LLM itself to see if the AI task was executed successfully according to its own kind of standards. So that's the data on the one hand.
And of course, when they talk about data, I think they went to great length and pointed out that it was privacy scrubbed and anonymized
exactly.
or something. Because there's obviously a lot of very private conversations going on with the AI.
Yeah, they made that point, of course, and removed that identifying information. So that was kind of step one of the study. And the other step of the study was to look at this US jobs database called ONET. And this is a database that lists all the possible occupations, all the possible work activities, and associates work activities with occupation. So they view every occupation as like a basket or a bundle of work activities. And then they looked at to what extent the activities that AI is being used for and is good at overlapped with the work activities that are relevant for any particular occupation.
So, key findings in general. What were some of the key findings that they got from looking at these 200,000 conversations between people and Microsoft Copilot?
Yeah, well, perhaps unsurprisingly, it was knowledge work or knowledge-related work activities that had the highest overlap. So specifically information gathering, writing and communicating with others are the most common user goals in Copilot conversations. And they also happen to be the most successfully completed. So they're getting the most positive feedback from users, and the inspections show that the AI task is being executed completely. And as you mentioned, one of the outputs of the study was this list of occupations, and this is the kind of list that we're seeing on X and on LinkedIn, and it's got interpreters and translators right at the top at number 1, followed by historians, also in the top 10, writers and authors, customer service representatives. And if you go all the way down to the bottom of the list, you're getting more into the physical and manual occupations, and right at the bottom of the list, you've got rail track laying, motorboat operators, and dredge operators. So these are the occupations that had the least overlap with these successful and common AI tasks.
All right. So let me, for those of you who are looking at this on YouTube, let me just spin up the paper here. So you see, yeah, that's what, of course, kind of triggered a lot of people in the language industry. At the top here are interpreters and translators, historians, passenger attendants, and we want to speak about that in a second, sales reps, writers and authors, customer service reps, CNC tool programmers, and they go all the way down to your dredge operators and bridge and lock tenders and water treatment plant and system operators. So yeah, you go from the information world to the physical world. So they calculated this AI applicability score. What does it actually mean, an AI applicability score? So is it a replacement score?
So the researchers actually are very careful in adding caveats to how the study should be interpreted. They say it would be a mistake to conclude that occupations that have high overlap with activities AI performs will be automated and thus experience job or wage loss. So they're explicitly saying that this result that puts interpreters and translators at the top of this overlap does not in any way indicate that one of the implications is that that these jobs will be replaced. So I think some of the headlines that we've seen spinning around are about translators and interpreters being made obsolete, or jobs are going to be lost. And this is really not the case at all. And we spent quite a bit of time working on the Slator headline for covering this.
Yeah.
And what we came up was Copilot shines on tasks that language professionals know best. So this is really what the study says about translators and interpreters. It doesn't say any more than that. And the researchers are very open and explicit that it doesn't imply any more than that with regards to the economy.
I mean, they probably should have expected that putting out a list where, like that the hot take was going to be top of the list means most likely to get replaced or wiped off the face of the earth immediately. I mean, and that was the hot take. Like literally every single tweet, every single post was like, oh, okay, top of the list means bad. You're going to get replaced. Bottom of the list, hey, you're going to, dredge your... what is it? The dredge operators are going to be safe for the next, 20 years. So that was the kind of obvious hot take here. So do you think that their caveat was basically knowing that this was going to be the take and they wanted to have that caveat, or is it like a genuine limitation of the study?
I think they most probably expected it to be interpreted in this way, but I think that it would be a shame if every single attempt to understand the impact of AI on the economy kind of elicits these responses, because
Good point.
There's a lot to understand, and it's in our best interests, obviously, in everyone's best interest, to dig into the data that we have and see what it can tell us about the impact that AI is going to have on occupations.
And so, yeah, let's talk about maybe one of the first points to understand this here relating to translation interpreting and other language work. So AI is relevant and useful in translation interpreting. Yeah, what does
Yeah.
that overlap actually tell us?
You can see this nice list on one side of the occupations and of the tasks on the other side, and lines joining the tasks with the work activities. I should stop saying tasks because they made an important point distinction in the paper between work activities and tasks. So we're talking about work activities.
Yeah.
And the work activities, some of the reasons that translators and interpreters rose to the top is that AI is very good at things that translators and interpreters do a lot, such as interpreting language and cultural information, presenting research or technical information, gathering info from various sources, examining material for accuracy. So AI is good at doing those tasks or assisting with those tasks. And in a lot of cases, the majority of cases, it is assistance rather than full execution of the task.
So the job does not equal a set of work activities, right? So there's this, they acknowledge that kind of decomposing a job into its work activities does not provide a full representation of every job, right? And then they had this really interesting anecdote. Maybe you want to talk a bit about that. Metaphor.
A metaphor.
Yeah, sorry, not anecdote.
Yeah, so the researchers acknowledged that this ONET database, which has a lot of, it's very useful in some ways, but what it basically is saying is that if you do a job, it's basically a basket of disconnected work activities. And they acknowledge that looking at occupations in this way is, of course, inaccurate because it does not give a full representation of every job. And the analogy they use is that the connecting glue between tasks also contributes to the value of the work. So in that case, what they're saying is that it's one thing to present research and technical information. It's another thing to interpret language and cultural information. It's another thing to be able to do both of those things and to apply that to a specific translation job at hand or a specific interpretation situation at hand. So they acknowledge that seeing jobs in this way is useful to an extent, but it doesn't give a full picture of what any one person does, what any professional does in that occupation. The other thing as well is that if you look at that list with interpreters and translators at the top, you'll see an impact score. And I think it's about 50 or 57 for interpreters and translators. And what that indicates is that the work activities that AI can perform only covers a moderate amount of the work activities that translators and interpreters need to perform. So even when we're looking at occupations at the very top, the data does not show that the AI can perform all of the work activities of any occupation. In fact, it shows that AI can perform some of those activities, a moderate amount. In no cases did they find that AI can perform a significant proportion or a total coverage of the work activities for one occupation.
I mean, trying to summarize this, so that is probably where the misunderstanding came from, right? That people naturally would look at the list, would look at the one line where it says, interpreters and translators, historians, writers and authors, CNC tool programmers. That's one line, right? And they see the coverage score. That's how it's. Is it though? Yeah, I mean, or kind of the composite score, and they say, well, this entire activity, interpreting and translation, is the one that has the high score, i.e., it's the one that's most basically at risk of replacement. But what the researchers actually looked like, and please push back if I get this wrong, were these individual components, right? These individual work activities. And if you kind of sum all this up, no job is more than 50%. Or has, what is it called, that score,
Impact.
The impact score, exactly. So in no job does it have more than 50% of this impact score. So these jobs aren't single work activities. It's a composite. The job itself is a composite of individual work activities where AI is useful or does take some kind of replaces certain human activities.
Exactly, and connected in a way that the AI is not doing as well.
Maybe that's kind of conceptually where all this hype around the agents is coming from, right?
Exactly, yeah.
Maybe in like different research or just in reality, people are noticing, well, the AI is great at XYZ, but not at these things that, you know, humans do, because they're the glue. They're, you know, kind of gluing together all these activities using their powerful non-artificial brains. And that's why we need these agents, and these agents is kind of the theme of 2025. And there's, you know, pros and cons, and people are saying it's a hype, and other people are saying it's the next greatest thing, right? All right. So let's talk about business application, the business, I don't know, applicability, or the business relevance of this.
Yeah.
Do you have any thoughts on that?
The researchers mentioned that, of course, that just because we can see that AI is useful in certain contexts does not imply anything about how businesses will choose to use AI to either automate or augment work activities. They say it's tempting to conclude that occupations that have high overlap with activities AI performs will be automated, experience job or wage loss. We mentioned that. And they say, and that occupations with activities AI assists with will be augmented and raise wages. This would be a mistake, as our data do not include the downstream business impacts of new technology. And I think, I mean, what we look at Slator every day is the downstream business impacts of this new technology. And that's what we've been looking at for the last, say, decade, the impact of machine translation on the translation industry. So we already know quite a lot about the business impacts of machine translation on the language industry. And this is something that is not necessarily new, and it's not something that we can take anything from the study.
Yeah, any kind of extra limitations, considerations mentioned in the paper, or not mentioned in the paper, rather?
Something that I thought that the researchers didn't really consider is that the extent to which AI is embedded in the work activity environment of knowledge workers compared to, say, non-knowledge workers. So
yeah.
MS Copilot is embedded into Word, Excel. So of course, these are tools that knowledge workers use every day. It's not embedded into tools that dredge operators and boat operators and chefs use every day. Maybe one day it will be. But of course, the usage is going to be higher, and the success is going to be higher in cases where it's embedded. And the other thing I was wondering is, what about the design and user interface of Copilot? Is that influencing usage? So when you're in Word, for example, to what extent is Copilot proactively suggesting certain tasks be completed with AI? Would you like me to translate this? Would you like me to summarize this? It's not clear from the paper if that was influencing if that was taken into account in terms of how users are using.
We wouldn't know because we're on Google Workspace. So
yeah.
I'm not sure if I ever used MS Copilot. Yeah. So yeah, the conclusion there would be,
for anyone who doesn't like this idea of this AI applicability score being applied to translators and interpreters, you could think of it as it's more of an MS Copilot applicability score. If you want to be really literal about it, this is the limitation. It tells you how useful and relevant is MS Copilot to the activities that interpreters and translators do.
So yeah, so we started with, this is a very misunderstood paper, but also, I mean, if you really boil it down, like, it doesn't tell us anything massively new. It just kind of confirms a lot of the kind of existing narrative, I guess.
Yeah, I mean, we already know that machine translation has high relevance and usefulness to translation. It's been integrated over the last decade. It's the first wave of AI integration. So very much something that we already know.
All right. And then there's one thing I do want to talk about, also speaking about limitations, maybe going back to that one. So if I look at the list, and number 3 is... And sorry, this is kind of like we were about to close this, but like I do want to point this out because it kind of just shows how limited these things are. Number 3 is passenger attendance.
Number 3
on this list is, so you go from interpreters and translators. Okay, makes sense. Historians kind of makes sense. Number 4 is sales reps of services, and then writers and authors. But then they're sitting right in position number 3 is passenger attendance. And then you go on this U.S. database, this, what's it called, from the U.S. Department of Labor or something. And so what are passenger attendants do? And it says they provide services to ensure the safety of passengers aboard ships, buses, trains, or within the station or terminal. You're like, all right. So I'm not sure how Microsoft Copilot helps you ensure the safety of passengers aboard ships, buses, or trains. But then it kind of makes no sense. So this is a complete outlier. But then if you
It's very
dig
odd.
into the paper, though, there is an explanation. It says the top IWAs involve delivering information to people such as provide information to customers, respond to customer inquiries, provide general assistance to others, and provide information to the public. These IWAs flow into occupations such as passenger attendants, sales reps. So maybe it does make sense again. So if you, again, decompose these jobs into its constituent kind of parts, then yeah, maybe 50% of what a passenger attendant does, like things like provide general assistance or provide information, could be done by the AI. But obviously, none of the physical things that a passenger attendant does, unless, yeah, we go full robot, which, is the latest thing anyway. Everybody's talking about these humanoid robots.
So they did weight the activities. So the activities that are more important to the occupation are meant to have higher weight. So I wonder if things like serving meals and beverages was maybe not weighted very highly.
Yeah, but if they say provide services to ensure the safety of passengers aboard, let's stick with the ship. So basically, ships, ship is about to go under, and then I guess your 99.99999% of your responsibility is making sure that people can leave the ship. So I don't know. Not any of the other stuff, and Microsoft Copilot isn't gonna kind of put you in the rescue boat.
No, though if anyone has been rescued by Microsoft Copilot in a ship evacuation, please write in.
Do let us know in the comments below. We're gonna get 0 comments on that. All right, cool. That was that was very, very interesting. And then just one last interesting side note. So obviously, we used AI, or I personally used AI to try to give me the highlights of this paper first, and then I compared it to the Anthropic paper, which we covered a couple of months ago, maybe 4 or 5 months ago, where Anthropic looked at like 4 million chats with Claude, and also found that a bunch of these conversations revolved around like translation requests. But then when I asked it to compare, so uploaded the Microsoft paper, the Anthropic paper, and then ChatGPT kept insisting that the Anthropic paper was actually authored by OpenAI, which was interesting. Like, so initially, like you upload it, you're like, okay, give me the thing, and then you look at it and like, oh, it says this second paper you're comparing it to is by OpenAI. I'm like, no, it's not by OpenAI, and then it kept insisting. And then I switched the model, and then at some point it said, oh yeah, so sorry, it's actually Anthropic. So not quite there yet. But of course, still very, very important. All right, look, this was a special episode on a piece of research that caused quite the stir and, made us dive deep into this. Occasionally, you do have to read it from A to Z and not have AI summarize it for you. So thank you very much, Anna, for that. And this was today's episode.